morning, everyone, and a huge welcome to a rather sweltering July Includability Employee Support Group. As ever, it is absolutely wonderful to see you. And if this is your first time with us on an Includability ESG, then a huge welcome to the family. It is wonderful to have you with us this morning and to be by your side as always. And of course, to all of our returning community, it's just brilliant to be by your side as always. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. And as ever, we have an extraordinarily lineup of brilliant, inspirational guest speakers who are going to be joining us on this fantastic day. 5 guest speakers across a series of amazing chapters for you over the next hour to help inspire you on your journey in creating an inclusive, healthy, and sustainable workplace culture. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, as ever, to introduce you to our extraordinary list of guest lineups, we have the brilliant Dipti Shah, founder of Conscious Rebel Leadership. We have Emma Palmer, head of D&I at Innovate UK. Hannah Beecham, MBE, founder of Red January. Sarah Anderson Smith, mental health champion at WGC. And the wonderful Meera Somji, co-founder of Clusivity. Now, our community revolves around facilitating great introductions. So as always, before we begin, we would love you to introduce yourselves on the chat feed. Please do connect with each other and of course with our brilliant guest speakers. And don't hesitate to share your LinkedIn profile if, of course, you'd be happy to do so. Of course, a little later on, we're going to be dropping in loads of various links to the chat feed over the course of the ESG itself. But please don't be shy. If you have an upcoming event or some great news that you'd love to share, then don't hesitate to pop that into the feed. As you know, we love shouting about the incredible work of our Includability community. Chris, our lovely comms manager, will as ever be dropping Includability gold into the chat feed, upcoming events, celebration days, resource links, video links, and of course, supporting with any questions that you might have during the ESG itself. Now, just before we introduce our first fantastic guest speaker for you this morning, a huge thank you to everyone who was able to pop across to the beautiful Five Fields XMI building in Grosvenor Square, London, on Thursday for our first Cheers to Change event. It was wonderful to see so many gorgeous faces under one roof. And a massive thanks to the brilliant XMI team, to Taylor, to Ollie, Matt, and the entire Five Fields crew for hosting us all so beautifully. It's always a bit of a hit to have a fantastic group of change makers, of leaders and innovators, just eating and drinking and chatting and relaxing together. For James and I personally, we were just there for the hugs, which was awesome. But if you didn't get the chance to attend, or you fancy coming along to our next event, then you are all invited. We're hoping to have a date confirmed shortly, fingers crossed, for Thursday the 28th of November. So please do just pop a pencil around that date, just in the short term, and we'd love to have you there. Details, fingers crossed, to follow. And now, for our very first guest speaker, I am delighted to introduce the amazing Dipti Shah, founder and director of Conscious Rebel Leadership, taking leaders on an adventure where vulnerability meets courage and empathy leads the way. Dips, it is so lovely to have time with you as always, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. It's really wonderful to kind of be here with you today. And I just want to say what an honor it is as well to kind of be sharing the floor with my fellow conscious rebels, as you will see as kind of the session sort of goes on. So what I'm really excited to kind of share with you, I think today, is my journey and story and the creation of conscious rebel leadership, a mission that invites others to strive and lead and live with a conscious heart and rebel mind, and collectively come together to cause good trouble for meaningful change and change the relationships, our workplaces, our communities, and kind of beyond. It's something that's a real personal mission close to my heart and is reflective of my personal and professional kind of journey. So what does it mean to lead with a conscious heart and a rebel mind? For me, leading with a conscious heart is about embodying empathy, self-awareness, authenticity, embracing vulnerability and honesty. It's about truly allowing people to reconnect to themselves and turn to connect with those around them. It's about bringing you alive, what gives you joy and what gives you purpose. And the rebel mind piece is really about challenging the status quo, fostering innovation, brave conversation, and taking courageous action, big or small. It's about daring to be you and sparking necessary change for positive good. So, my goal is to really empower individuals to become inclusive leaders and transform the organizations into people centric, inclusive environments where humans and business can really kind of thrive together. So, how have I kind of really come to land in this place? I'm going to share a little bit about kind of my journey and story, and this is kind of the real fast forward sort of version and starts when I was a little kid. As a kid, I looked at the world with curiosity. I grew up in a three-generation Indian household where English was my second language and traditions were important. I had hardworking parents that set up their own business from nothing, and it afforded me a privileged education. From a young age, I was thrown into so many different environments and connected with so many different people, and it only made me more curious about the world and each of our lived experiences. If I saw that something wasn't right, my mind would wander and to think about what could work. How can I and we make this better? The curiosity and desire never left me, and in fact, it stayed with me through my life and working career and even got louder. Somewhere along the way, I got a little bit kind of sidetracked and thought I wanted a career as a DJ. That was squashed very, very quickly by my Indian parents. But what I'll tell you is I'm doing that now as a hobby. So what I did instead was kind of journey into the venture of the sports, media, advertising, and creating world. The last 20 years I've spent kind of in the people and culture space, crafting inclusive, people-centric cultures, helping organizations shape strategic decisions for positive change and business growth. I've also spent my time coaching and mentoring leaders. My journey has been a roller coaster of highs and lows. I've had the opportunity and platform to influence, evolve, and change organizational culture, where difference is a strength and it impacts the business and what it can achieve through its people, for its people, and its growth. I've also faced and had to navigate challenging situations, microaggressions, being undermined, and inclusive environments where I often felt like I had to wear an armor just to show up. I couldn't be me, and it often left me feeling invisible, confused, isolated, and alone. Throughout my career journey, there have been a few visible leaders that have looked like me or shared my values and perspectives. I have often found myself being the only diverse female leader in a room, the lone voice with a different perspective, lived experience, understanding. I learned how to turn that into my superpower, and it wasn't always that way. The lack of role models the lack of role models and the leaders that I resonated with has really kind of sparked something through me in my career. And just to give you some context, in the 20 years that I've kind of been doing this, I've only come across and directly worked with 10 racially diverse leaders at a senior level. 10 in 20 years. I just want to kind of like land that for a moment. So I decided around halfway through my career that I wanted to be part of the change and pave the way for others. I didn't just want a seat at the table. I wanted to change the table and chairs and bring different people together and show the impact that can have on a business and societal level. So that's what I do in terms of kind of partnering with organizations and to spread the greatness of conscious kind of rebel leadership. So one of my biggest challenges, as I've kind of mentioned, was that there wasn't really a blueprint of how someone like me becomes an impactful and influential kind of leader. I had to find my own way and to navigate those layers, barriers, and the other leaders just didn't experience. I had some great coaches and some wonderful mentors, and yet there were limits. They couldn't fully sit with me in my experiences and understand them or help me kind of navigate them. And this is something that's really important in terms of the work that I do through conscious rebel leadership, of kind of being able to be a place and a space for non-majority leaders to really unpack their experiences. So I'm going to tell you a little story about kind of, I guess, how some of this has all sort of come together in the context of an organization and how important it is to really challenge the status quo and the power of of your own voice and kind of what you can kind of really achieve through sort of doing that. So just to put a little bit of context around this, I was part of a global organization of about 1,000 people. I sat on the European leadership team, and I was about 4 years into my journey with this organization. I'd built a reputation of authenticity. I'd garnered influence and impact amongst my peers on the leadership team and the people of the organization. The company globally wanted to realign its vision, purpose, and values, and to really unite everyone to kind of come together. I'm sure many of you on this call have heard this story of this journey of realigning, repurposing vision, values, and purpose. Yeah, you're gonna enjoy this one. So what really kind of happened is the global leadership team, a homogenous group that really lacked diversity, 7 white men of similar backgrounds, all based in the US, similar skills and expertise, all growing up in the same company, decided to get in a room and put together this new vision, purpose, and values. They then decided that they would share that with the next layer below, so all the leadership teams across the globe for their feedback. So what was interesting about this group was that that was about 30 of us. And yes, there was more representation in the group from a visible perspective, gender, skill, expertise, and experience. And there were only two racially diverse leaders in that group as well, me being one of them. The vision was uninspiring, it lacked inclusivity, and it really wasn't going to resonate with 1,000 set employee, let alone kind of clients and future clients and business as well. So many in that meeting praised the work these leaders had created and what they had done. Many said nothing, and a handful of us asked some questions out of curiosity and concern. We were told that actually in this presentation that we could not adapt, we could only adapt what they had fundamentally presented, but it could not be changed. And here lay kind of the dilemma. So after the presentation, I talked to kind of 3 of my trusted colleagues, friends, and allies within the business and asked them what they felt about what had been presented. They had their own concerns and perspective on what was presented. And we agreed that we would email the global CEO our individual feedback. So here was the dilemma. I reflected on what to say. I wanted to be honest with that feedback. And at the same time, I knew I perhaps was taking a risk of maybe having attention on me in a negative way, unsure of the consequences, not sure of what the repercussions could be. The only diverse female leader about to call a few things out. I had to think twice, but I knew it was absolutely the right thing to do. And so on I kind of went. So fast forward, it's Friday afternoon and I'm sat at my laptop and I start to write my Dear John email. And the global CEO's name is John, by the way. I'm not making that up. So it is very much Dear John. And in this email, I decided to kind of really emphasize the need for a more stronger and inclusive vision, the impact we could have on the industry and beyond for good and for change. It highlighted the importance of including diverse voices in the process, not just at the feedback stage, and that we have missed a huge opportunity and yet there was still time to change that. It pointed out that global leaders' voices were important, but they aren't a diverse or representative group, and that we had already tripped ourselves up at the first hurdle. It pointed out while we couldn't change the mix of diverse talent at senior leadership level overnight, we can still change the way we think and how we do things. And if we didn't do this, we would struggle to continue to evolve as a business. And in all honesty, we needed to help each other get out of each other's way. And then I kind of ended it with, if he was opening to listening to more and some of the ideas of how we could do things differently, I would be happy to share. So the weekend rolled by, Monday rolled by, nothing. the waiting. Oof, how's this going to land? And on a Tuesday afternoon, I got an email that thanked me for my considered thoughts and asking to kind of speak. And a week later, I was on a call with him for an hour and a half, talking about kind of the way we could do different things differently. It was a challenging conversation where he didn't want to hear certain things and wouldn't kind of move on others, but actually we stayed in it together and kind of leaned in with curiosity. So why I share this is that a few of my other colleagues also shared their views with John. And what kind of happened is actually what they had created was scrapped. We went back to the drawing board. We decided to look at how we would do this differently. And out of that was born a global project team that was much more representative to kind of go on to sort of fulfill this work. Out of that group of 30 people, it was only 4 that spoke up and kind of shared their voices and what they honestly thought. And what I leave with you is that actually your voice matters and it really counts. It only took 4 to kind of really make such a significant change. So why am I kind of telling you all of this? Well, this is kind of how I work with leaders and sort of organizations. And so my work is mainly through offering being a fractional chief people officer for organizations, a consultant for organizations, but I call it a collaborator. I don't like the word consultant because it's very much in partnership and collaborating with organizations and really helping them kind of build inclusive, people-centric cultures. I also work one-on-one with leaders through coaching and mentoring. And that's really kind of helping leaders unearth their authenticity, their voice, their vulnerability, their integrity. I'm especially interested in supporting leaders from diverse backgrounds, and I run specific kind of leadership and coaching programs that really unpack some of the things that affect diverse leaders that's different to the majority kind of leader set. The way I coach is delving into clients' thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and experiences, and it's about sustainable growth and intentional action. And it's all about driving change from a human and systems perspective. So if you're curious to know more or want to discuss anything or want me to tell you any more stories, feel free to reach out, and I'm kind of always happy to share. I'll leave you with a quote from John Lewis, and it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's never ever be afraid to make some noise and get into good trouble, necessary trouble. Thank you all for listening. It's been wonderful to share, and keep striving and doing your thing in your own way because you're all conscious rebels at heart. Thank you.
Dipti, you are wonderful. Thank you so much, and just so wonderful to be in your company as always. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom, and I just feel the world is simply a better place for having you in it. And on top of all of that wonderful stuff, I had the opportunity to tell Dipti that over a donut salad on Thursday evening. So for me, it has literally been the greatest week ever. Dips, I love you and you're the best. Thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. Um, and now for our second guest speaker, I'm delighted to introduce the brilliant Emma Palmer, simply one of my favorite humans ever created, an equity, diversity, and inclusion leader, and one of our inspirational includability ambassadors. It's amazing to see you as always, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Dave. Can you hear me okay?
Got you perfectly, Em. Thank you.
Brilliant. Dipti, that was incredible. Yeah, just so good. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Chris. So thank you so much, Dave, and the Includability team. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm always proud to be part of this great community. And that's exactly what I want to focus on today, community and togetherness through the lens of intersectionality. And just hearing stories like Dipti's, it kind of reinforces why I do this work and why inclusion is so incredibly important. For me, I think intersectionality has become a bit of a buzzword over the years, and in some instances, I think it can really lose its meaning But that's for a number of reasons. Either people just don't know what it means, or people know what it means, but they find it really difficult to apply it when they're doing their inclusion work, or people can talk about intersectionality inaccurately. So I wanted to give my take on it, but more importantly, its roots, where it's come from, and how you might be able to apply intersectionality properly in inclusion work. So the word was first coined in 1989, not that long ago, but it feels like it, through the work of this amazing woman on the screen, Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. She specialises in race and gender issues, and she developed intersectional theory, which is the study of how overlapping and social identities relate to systems of oppression and discrimination. And there's lots of videos, and I think she's done a TED talk as well about intersectionality. Next slide, please, Chris. So this is how she frames intersectionality, and she says, intersectionality is a lens through which you can see where power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. It's not simply that there's a race problem here or a gender problem here and a class or LGBTQ plus problem there. Many times that framework erases what happens to people who are subject to all of these things. And I see this a lot in organisations. I see leaders wanting to focus, and rightly so, because there's positive intent behind it, but they want to focus on what the issue is there or what the issue is there. They want to focus on one group over another, and that doesn't always work, and it's not sustainable. So I think this framing, Kimberly's quote here, is a nice simple description of it. But because it's based in critical race theory, it can sometimes feel quite abstract for anybody that isn't familiar with what intersectionality is or what it actually looks like in practice. So I wanted to break some of these elements down just to make it a little bit more digestible. Next slide, please, Chris. So you might have seen this graphic before. There's lots of different versions of it, and this is just a nice simple way of expressing what intersectionality looks like. So it's in the middle, and then around it we've got all of our different identities. But what is it actually rooted in? So the word intersectionality itself exists by circumstance. Kimberly Crenshaw took a particular case to an employment tribunal, and she was representing a black woman who worked at a car plant in the US, and I think this was in the 70s. This woman went for promotion, but she didn't get it, and she didn't get it because she was discriminated against because of her race and gender. Now, when it went to tribunal, the judge dismissed her experience and essentially said, well, the black woman wasn't discriminated against on the grounds of gender because the organisation employs white women over here, and she certainly wasn't discriminated against on the grounds of race because the organisation hires black men over there. But I think what the judge failed to look at were the intersections of her being a black woman of working class background, and didn't believe that she was discriminated against due to these identities that she held. So what this actually tells us is a very different story about what's accessed, what her experience is, and how oppression actually looks. So if the judge had taken these things into consideration, they would have seen that her experiences as a black woman would have been very different to the people that the judge was comparing her to, because essentially the law didn't take into consideration that she could be discriminated against based on both race and gender, or a combination of those two things. So that's its roots, that's what it's anchored in. And oftentimes the term itself, I think, is misunderstood in the context of EDI work. So when we use intersectionality, we need to look at the functions of how discrimination and oppression exists under racism. Then we can move forward, and it will help us understand how it exists under sexuality, class, disability, etc. But it's important to emphasise that intersectionality is rooted through the lack of experience and discrimination caused to a black woman, and when used, it's really important that people understand what it's anchored in. So everything you see on this slide, these are social categorizations, and it doesn't just stop there, of course. There's age, there's faith, there's gender identity, etc. But these are the social categorizations. These are the things that we use to promote diversity, to increase representation. So in our organisations, this is our shop window. But how can we build intersectionality into our inclusion work at a simple level? Firstly, it involves recognising and addressing the multiple overlapping identities that we all have. You know, so I'm a woman, I'm a brown woman, and I'm gay. These are all things that can determine how I move in the world and the experiences of discrimination or privilege that I might have. So what are some of the tangible ways of ensuring that intersectionality is a woven thread throughout an organisation? So we understand it, we get the theory, but how can we apply it? So if we look at policy, developing and reviewing policies with an intersectional lens means that we're thinking about diverse groups, and we're able to ensure that things like our flex working policy, our discrimination policies, parental leave, that all of these are inclusive of the groups that can often be left behind, and that they're not indirectly or directly excluding that group or advantaging another. If we look at accessibility, this means thinking about the types of programs that we're putting on, the types of events we're putting on, considering physical, linguistical and cultural barriers. But that's in an organisation. What does it actually look like beyond that? So I took some examples from a website called the Opportunity Agenda, and this particular one looks at inequity and how it can influence different health outcomes and create barriers to accessing clean water. So after Hurricane Katrina, it came to light that a Vietnamese community had been living in a part of New Orleans particularly prone to water contamination and were doubly hit by the floods. This was having an adverse effect on their health, but it was harder for them to get help because due to their language barriers, they weren't sure how to access healthcare and there weren't enough translators. So what they did was they put intersectionality into practice. A group of people were looking at what the health needs were, what wasn't being met, and then they were able to see what unique risks were there for this particular community. Another example is around cross-issue collaborations. So this is putting things like activists, police officers, lawyers and strategists all together to effect change. So the relationship between grassroots activists in Flint, scientists in Virginia and lawyers in Detroit and a very determined paediatrician in Michigan led to the public exposure of the Flint water crisis. And what these collaborations did, it allowed individuals to work across all of their disciplines and issues, which led to innovative findings, policy change, policy recommendations, and eventually a complete solution to the issue. So what this did is it moved beyond traditional methods and brings unlikely allies together. So those are just a couple of examples of where you might be able to put intersectionality into action. And lastly, just to talk about privilege and marginalisation, because these things are, I guess, subcomponents of intersectionality. So looking at the diagram, you can see how all the circles layer on top of each other and they intersect. And this represents intersectionality. Now, if I apply this to myself, I'm a mixed heritage Black person, but I'm light-skinned. Now, the mixed heritage experience can be unique, and I'm talking about white and Black mixed here. And each person has their own way of identifying. There's no right or wrong way, but I think as a mixed race person, there is this expectation that you have to pick a side, and that's just simply not the case. The mixed experience is an experience in of itself. Now, I don't choose a side, but I am intentional when I highlight the Black side of my identity, because it's a way of affirming and embracing that part of who I am. I'm proud to put that front and centre because growing up, it wasn't celebrated at times. I experienced anti-Black racism with certain words that were used, and I will not say those words. But I'm at a point now in my life where I can disempower those people that caused me for an element of my life to feel shame about who I was. So this reframing of what happened to me allows me to celebrate it instead. I'm in no way denying my white heritage. My mum's white, she raised me. But there is this idea that if you're a brown person, you're more successful the closer your proximity is to whiteness. And after being told I was too black in certain environments or not black enough in others, I just decided to reclaim it for myself and me alone. So I don't particularly identify in any certain way, but I do emphasize mixed heritage black. And I have to say, when when I go to UK Black Pride, or I'm what we call in the culture, I feel so proud to be part of that culture because it is a part of me. Now, as a light-skinned brown person, I hold what you call light-skinned privilege, but I don't hold all light skin privilege. And when we talk about privilege, we often hear white privilege. And I think people can get themselves tied up in knots a bit about that. Privilege exists in lots of ways. There's white skin privilege, there's light skin privilege, there's there's housing privilege, education privilege. It's so broad. But because skin tone is a status characteristic used in society to evaluate and rank the social positions of minoritized people, I have to say it's important that we all recognize where our privileges lie. But because I walk this middle world, mixed heritage black, I am aware of how I've had access to spaces and places, opportunities and networks that, say, darker women than me haven't had. I also fit into Western ideals about beauty standards of what it means to be acceptable or palatable in certain spaces. So one day I could be given preferential treatment, the next, because of my skin tone, I might experience racism, and the two things can coexist. But I still hold a lot of privilege in comparison to someone with much darker skin, even within having brown skin. It's so complex, it's so nuanced, but there's a thing called colorism. If anyone isn't familiar with it, I'd encourage you to look into it. But I'm so aware of what colorism is and how it can manifest in really toxic ways within the black and brown communities. So I recognise my privilege in having light skin. So although intersectionality and privilege have become buzzwords, we can avoid them being tick boxes. Its true meaning is that our identities do intersect. They compound each other and impact how we move in the world. You can't always see people's lived experiences or their identities, but they may impact when those things are visible or are explicit. Having an intersectional lens on things will just help us delve a little bit deeper into why people have different experiences, and then it will make it easier for us to identify what barriers we need to remove in order to create systems of equity. And that's where we need to be moving to, striving towards that place of equity. Thank you.
You are incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your guidance. You're a change maker and a leader, and you're wonderful. Thank you. And I should also say that Em and Dipti are individually brilliant, but are also a phenomenal tour de force when working in partnership. They support businesses through grace and through kindness. And as a community, we are so properly blessed to have them both. And you're wonderful. Thank you so much. That was incredible. And another blessing is our very own James Privato, who, through popular demand, will be sharing the 2-minute includability snapshot, a quick rundown of key information so that we can support you in the very best way possible. James, thanks so much, mate. And the virtual floor is yours.
Dave is incredibly kind, but by no demand whatsoever. I've just decided to infiltrate my way in. Just wanted to say massive thanks to everybody who came to Links and Drinks. We're really, really, really excited with this. The next one, fingers crossed, we're looking for is November. So please, the end of November, keep your diaries open, because we will hopefully have part 2 if Ollie from X and Y says it's okay, going forward. So no pressure on him, but he is here. So flood the chat for him. Also, now we all know that sort of HR, sustainability, wellbeing, mental health leads and managers are hugely overworked. And being tasked with sourcing speakers for events and webinars is very, very time consuming. So there are 2 events coming up soon that you probably need to think about. One is in September, which is National Inclusion Week, which is September the 23rd to the 29th. And the other is Black History Month. Now, these are kind of key ones, but there are lots of other awareness days going on outside of that. But if you are tasked with trying to get speakers for these events, and you need to create a workplace event, you can now get help from ourselves. We are now able to help book one of our amazing ambassadors or partner experts to deliver a lunch and learn or a workshop. And at Includability, we got you covered with what we call Engage. We've got sessions on everything from inclusive practices to amplifying your allyship, all designed to help you work towards a more inclusive and supportive environment. So whether it's in person or an online event, we have some amazing options for you. So let us do the heavy lifting for you this September, October, November, December, and every month afterwards. Let us book, organize, and engage everything. Plus, for committed employees, there are also a few cheeky little Davey discounts available in there as well, which will certainly help save some of that budget. So don't wait. There's less time than you think to sort these things out. Contact us now, and we can help you book sessions and supported teams. Let's make this National Inclusion Week, Black History Month transformative for your organisation through Engage. Chris is going to pop some links in the chat for you. Or if you need any help, please speak to myself or Dave, and we can guide you and let you know what's in the locker in terms of available courses, webinars, lunch and learns. So I'm going to send you back over to my purpose-led but inclusively huggy partner, Dave.
James, you're brilliant. Thank you so much. Love you. And love a David discount. James, thank you, wonderful. And of course, as James said, any further information you need at any point around includability or to chat through how your business can become an includability committed employer, of course, you've got James, you've got myself, you've got Danny and Chris available for you. As James says, anything we can do to support you, please do just let us know. And we are absolutely there. James, thank you again. And now for our 3rd guest speaker, I am so excited to introduce the wonderful Hannah Beecham, MBE, founder of Red January, an extraordinary global movement that has raised millions for mental health causes and inspire communities to embrace regular physical activity to boost people's mental health, their well-being, and their quality of life. Hannah, it is amazing to have you with us, and the virtual floor is yours.
Dave, thank you so much. Truthfully, I'm really enjoying listening to everyone. So the fact that I'm now up, yeah, I need to get myself focused. But Dipti and Emma, it's such a privilege to listen to you both, and yeah, thank you for sharing all that you have. And it's such a joy to be part of the Includability community as well. I've only been part of the community for a few months, but I can already see like the ethos and the values. It does what it says on the tin, which is brilliant to see, so brilliant to see. So yeah, it's such a joy to be here. I wanted to really share with you a bit of an overview of Red January, for those of you that aren't familiar with Red, just to give you a bit of the backstory behind it, the inspiration behind it, and share with you our year-round mission as well, and as part of that, one of our initiatives, which has been truly shaped by organisations throughout the years. And I really believe that it could help support all of you as well, all of your organisations. So we've got some insights to share with you around this year-round initiative as well. And as with all these things, we're really keen that you all step away with some practical tools and resources that you can put into action straight away. So my hope is that you leave with just one little nugget of something that you can bring into your own lives as well to support your own well-being and the well-being of those around you. And I guess obviously in the spirit of collaboration as well, if we have the time, we'd love to hear from you as well around things that you're doing internally to support your your well-being and the well-being of your employees as well. But I'll dive straight in. I'll share some information about Red January just to give you a bit of context as to how all of this came about, really. So it started with my incredible mum. So my mum experiences depression, and year on year, particularly during the wintertime, my mum's depressive symptoms were worsening. And I remember so vividly people saying to me, it's definitely seasonal affective disorder. People's understandably, they kind of put a few labels on things around what this could be. But at the time, my mum was going to the doctors, and that wasn't one of the things that she was experiencing. What was happening was my mum's depressive symptoms were increasing because at this time of year in the UK, especially in other Northern Hemisphere countries, there's so much evidence to show that we all at some point experience lower mood, lower energy. If we do experience mental health challenges, our symptoms can worsen as well. And what's more is inactivity levels increase hugely in the winter. We all kind of retreat indoors. The Netflix box sets go on, which I'm a huge advocate for as well, by the way. I think it's all about the balance. But the Netflix box sets go on, we retreat indoors, and we become a little more sedentary. We also, research was showing as well, we can sometimes disconnect a little bit with others. So there's higher reports of isolation in the winter. And you know what it's like, you know, when you read something and you think, I can't unsee that. And I could see what my mum was experiencing. And I thought, I really don't want that to be the case for my mum. I don't want for every winter my mum to really go through this and to be really unwell. So it started with me signing my mum and I up to a walking marathon, which I'm sure you're all thinking, oh my goodness, your mum's experiencing depression and here you are signing her up to a walking marathon. And obviously it certainly wasn't a jump out of bed moment by any means, of course, but slowly and surely my mum started putting one foot in front of the other. And what became so clear is that sharing the experience with someone, having that sense of purpose, having something to really work towards, really, truly made my mum feel like she was kind of coming back to herself. The symptoms started to lessen as well. And again, once we'd had that experience together, I couldn't let my mum have another winter where she would step back into experiencing depressive symptoms that were crippling at times. And so the idea was born for Red January, and it was very much rooted in creating a community, sharing an experience, and us all empowering each other to find movement that we enjoy. So for my mum, it's always been walking. As children, we always grew up, we went out on walking trips together. So walking was always the thing for my mum. But as we go into 10 years of Red January, there's hundreds of thousands of people across the country that have all embraced movement in different ways. So we've got a four-year-old in the community, Jack, who takes part in the Daily Mile with his school. He gets all of his teachers involved. And then this year, 98-year-old Brenda, who goes out walking every day. She's joined a WhatsApp group with her family. And year on year, we've had so many organizations get involved and embrace Red January as a team. And again, just choosing movement that people enjoy and that you'll likely continue well beyond January. So yes, it says January in Red January. We're very aware of that. And we very often get asked, okay, so what happens in February? People have formed all of these incredible habits. They've shared this experience. What happens in February, sorry. And what we found is that Red January, the experience, we have so many incredible insights and stories from that experience that throughout the years, it started to shape and inform initiatives that run year round. One of those initiatives is movement breaks. So we found that organizations were looking at ways that they could incorporate movement in their day-to-day. And this was led by one of our partners, Decathlon, who you might think, okay, well, it's Decathlon, it's sports in their DNA. Of course, they're going to be doing things like this. But actually, their employees were sharing with them, yeah, sports in the DNA, but truly, we're not actually moving that much. And really, we want to be moving that bit more to support ourselves, because we all know the relationship between movement and mental health and the impact that it can have. But it doesn't always make it easy to enjoy the benefits of movement. So actually, if there's a way that that can be celebrated more and supported more, we would love to see if we can start to embrace that. So Decathlon worked with their employees to understand what movement breaks and the role of movement breaks could have for them. And what they found was that they were largely sedentary before January, and then Red January came in and they used it as an opportunity to find what could work. And it was things like taking conversations that could be taken outside for a walk and a talk, having meetings on the move, setting up groups as well, like team sport opportunities. So on a Friday afternoon, for example, they all come together. For those that want to, they can go for a run, they can do a yoga session. We've also, with our community of partners, we invited in a Pilates teacher to do some Pilates around the desk and things like that. But really, it was an opportunity for them to start embracing movement as a team, individually, and see the impact that it had. And unsurprisingly, the results were just incredible. So people experienced an improvement in their productivity. They felt calmer. I remember one lady sharing with me that for the first time, she knew all the names of the people in the department across from her, because so often you're just kind of emailing each other, but they really got to know each other. And the thing that really struck us as well, actually, as part of these movement breaks, is people really got to know each other for who they were outside of work. So often, as we know, when you're going into work meetings, you get straight to it. You start talking about work. But actually, what we found with movement is it was starting to break down some of those barriers, and people were starting to get to know each other as human beings, getting to know about each other's families and hobbies and who they are. And what they found was that actually then it just made conversations just generally, even about work, much more approachable, because you understand the person more. You understand what they enjoy, what they love, who they are, what makes them special. And so we were so blown away by the response from that similar to when I heard the evidence about the inactivity levels, we couldn't unsee it. And it just felt like this was a real way for organizations across the country to start to embrace movement breaks, embrace more movement. And so we've been calling on organizations to do just that. And we recognize, of course, it's never one size fits all. But we've started to work with a community of partners that can provide some support around what movement breaks could mean to you and your organization. And that includes organizations like Mental Health UK, who have some incredible resources around even how to have that initial conversation of going out for a walk and a talk, because it might feel foreign to some, like it might not feel like the thing to do. So even some support around the conversations as well. But also, as we all know, these things do need to be led by some champions internally as well, and it needs to be embraced by leaders in the organization. So we've also got tools for those people as well in different organizations. We've also been working a lot with Decathlon of the back of them introducing movement breaks. So if it's something that you'd like to introduce or you've already introduced, then Decathlon have some brilliant kit as well, some sports kit, because we recognize that perhaps one of the barriers is, okay, but we want to be doing more sport, we want to be doing more team sport, but we need equipment to do that. So Decathlon can support around that as well. I'm going to stop just there, because I know I mentioned up front around collaboration. And if it's okay, just to open the floor up and just hear, has anyone introduced movement breaks? What's that looking like for you? Is it something that you would really like to introduce to your organization as well? Because we might have some tips and insights that might support you. But if anyone's happy to share, we would love to hear, because truly we're on, as we all are, a journey with this, and we really want to shape it with people. So yeah, if anyone's happy to share their kind of insights, we'd love to hear.
Does it
And
feel
there's no
like
pressure.
sometimes you're in a school assembly, like, I don't want to be the first person to ask? Bless you. If anybody would like to say anything, please, of course, feel free to do so. Or if you would rather sort of put any kind of comments in the chat feed, if that feels more comfortable. If anybody would like to say anything, they're more than welcome to. We'll give it a few more seconds. Don't want to put anybody on the spot.
No, I know.
Please do
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the big challenges that we have, I think, just in general,
Yep.
is that we're every time. So every time we go to employers or go to leadership, there's always a conversation around how busy people are. So when we went to them in the early days about, talking about inclusion, it was like, we know we need to do stuff, but we're so busy at the minute, we haven't got time for it. And when we were talking about sustainability, it was like, well, that sounds like a lot of work. But actually, you can start to embed workflows and processes that are your day-to-day workflows and processes that make an impact, that are inclusive. And actually, there's a lot you can do by just moving the needle slightly to deliver. Then when you're talking about movement breaks and actually your own well-being and looking after your employees, it becomes really complex, because I find if I'm under pressure and stressed, I'll do less in terms of my personal well-being. And if I'm on top of everything and flying, then I do it. But for me, it was always been around, I do a lot of stuff before work, and then my day starts and it's like an hour and it's 6 o'clock in the evening. So I guess even having those as part of a leadership team, having those, knowing what you should be doing, but embedding them into your day to day is quite complex. And I think it's like having a meeting. You've never got time to have a meeting unless you book it into your diary. And I think well-being as well, if you're looking after yourself, book it into your diary, because then you're committed to doing it.
Paul, that's such a good point. And that's such a good tip as well in terms of scheduling these things in, because they are important, as you say. And actually, what we've found as well is when you're starting to factor that into your day to day, even scheduling in like a walking meeting or your own movement break. So people see that in your diary as, you know what, I'm just going to take a 5 minute, I'm just going to go and get some fresh air. And that's the thing with movement breaks. It's what you're describing there. It can absolutely coexist around everything else that you're doing. It shouldn't mean that, oh no, we just haven't got the time to factor those in. It can absolutely coexist. It's just putting some of those fundamentals in place, like you say. Yeah. I would say as well, and I hear you in terms of when you're more stressed, the prospect of like, lacing up your trainers, those things, you're just kind of in it, aren't you? Just getting things done. And we found that actually the time when you need to move more is when you are stressed. So it almost works against each other. So what we found is that movement breaks, out of all of the initiatives and all of the work that we've ever done with organizations over the past 10 years, movement breaks is the one that we're finding that people are really embracing, because as I described, it can absolutely coexist around those kind of peaks and troughs of workflow. But it's putting in some of those basic principles around factoring it in. It is just as important, if not more important, than anything else in your working day, just to keep you focused and calm and support your well-being. Because without that, what do we have? So it's and also the connection thing as well. That's the thing that I wanted to share with you all, is when I heard that people were really getting to know each other for who they were and the role of movement in doing that, it really dawned on me actually that when we're at work, you can have this, we're at work, this is what we can share. And I just think that's incredible that movement can do that and actually just open up, and you get to know each other for the humans that we are. But thank you for sharing some of those tips as well around including it in your diary as well.
Hannah, thank you as well so much as well. Bakes, thanks so much for your wonderful contribution. And Hannah, honestly, was simply incredible. What a mission, and what an extraordinarily life-changing impact on so many lives across the world. I know that Chris is popping in the links within the chat feed so that all of our organizations can reach out to get involved in this fantastic movement. The benefits for your teams, exactly as Hannah said, are simply huge, and we cannot champion them enough. Hannah, you're a total inspiration. Also, hashtag go Brenda. I think that needs to be the new caption for an amazing 90-year-old human who is just doing incredible things.
Love Brenda.
But thank you so much for
Thank
allowing
you.
us to steal you away this morning. Hashtag go Brenda. Hannah, you're the best. Thank you. And now, just before we introduce our fourth guest speaker, we would love you to vote for a charitable project that we can support on your behalf this morning through our partnership with B1G1. They are, as many of us know, a brilliant B Corp. They support hundreds of charitable projects, both in the UK and internationally, all positively impacting the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So, as ever, you're doing an incredible thing for the planet simply by being awesome and hanging out with us this morning. So, thank you. Chris is going to drop those options into the chat feed now. 3 amazing high impact community movement projects inspired by Hannah's brilliant presentation to choose from, and simply pop the letter of your chosen project into the feed, A, B, or C. Project A will be supporting a sports program for marginalized communities in the Philippines. Project B will be teaching life skills to young adults through sport in India. And finally, Project C will be providing safe, recreational, and movement spaces for children within refugees in camps in Greece. So please, as you cast your votes, I'm delighted to introduce our fourth guest speaker, the wonderful Sarah Anderson-Smith, mental health champion at WGC, who are one of our brilliant includability committed employers. As always, it's fantastic to listen from our includability accredited businesses, to learn from their journeys and how they're supporting their teams within the workplace. So I'm thrilled that we have Sarah with us. Sarah, wonderful to be with you as always this morning. And the virtual floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Dave. I mean, if you ever need an ego boost, just join an includability webinar, because you feel so great after it, don't you? So, and yeah, so I didn't actually pop up when Hannah said, because movement breaks, that is something that we have introduced. So WGC, we're about 6,000 employees, primarily housekeeping staff. So they are doing hard work, manual labour every day. And part of joining includability was, for us, was just to sort of absorb all the knowledge. And I am being a sponge, because I join these things to take away as much as I can. So we found that, how do we communicate with these people, with everyone, when they're not at a desk, they're not sitting working? So we actually, I think it was Danny who connected us with Gym Group and Holland and Barrett, who had the same sort of problem. And from a few conversations with them, we figured out a WhatsApp group was the best way to reach everybody, because the broadcast channel, they can interact with it, they can answer polls. And we found out they just wanted some sort of help with sort of taking care of themselves. And through that, we found Claudia, who is one of our team members, is a trained yoga teacher. And it comes from that whole connection thing of speaking to people. You find out, actually, that's her passion. Yoga is her passion. So she hosts a weekly session for us every Tuesday. And we've purposely scheduled it at lunchtime, because everyone has to take a lunch break. So why not use that time well? So I think for us, that is the whole point of joining includability. We are very new in our journey, and I will happily hold my hands up and say, we're not the best. We can be better. And I think for me, that's why it's important that we share our story and say, hey, it's okay if you need help to be better. So that was our main story. I'll be honest, I haven't prepared any notes. I spoke to Dave earlier in the week and I was like, I'm going to write down all what I want to say, and then I didn't do it. So
Sarah, you're awesome. You never need to worry about that. I think you're incredible. And
and I
also
talk 10 million miles an hour as well. So that's something I need to work on.
Honestly, Sarah and I on a video call together is just my favorite thing ever. It's incredible. Sarah, I think you're awesome. I mean, what a journey. And thank you so much for sharing not only some of the brilliant successes of particularly of the last year, but also the challenges. I think that's where we grow and where we learn. And our includability committed employers are businesses of all gorgeous shapes and sizes. But WGC, I think, are a really shining example of a large company, 6,000 strong, exactly as Sarah said, with a highly committed, highly engaged senior leadership team, totally committed to creating, a thriving workplace culture. And as Sarah said, it takes time. Um, I'm so lucky that I've had the chance to hang out with Sarah over a number of virtual couples, and the work she is doing in partnership with Tom Coppin, their brilliant CIO, is inspirational. Sarah, you're the best. Thank you so much for coming on this morning and being with us and sharing your story. I think
Yeah,
it's interesting.
and I think for me as well, it's great to have joined WGC. Well, 364 days ago, so it's my 1 year anniversary with them tomorrow. But it's nice to be at the beginning of the journey and be able to help guide. And I think because we started on such a blank slate, we can get everybody's input and we can find out what people want and how they want support. And I know free pizza Fridays is not a benefit, but our teams absolutely love it. So it's finding that whole what works for the team.
Couldn't agree more. Sarah, you're wonderful. I think along with the hashtag of Go Brenda, we've also got hashtag Pizza Friday and also hashtag it's Sarah's 1 year anniversary tomorrow. So hashtag Tom Copp and get me an amazing birthday cake. Hashtag. All of the
Give
hashtags.
me that includability trick, which he still has not done yet.
Tom, you owe. Tom is very aware. Sarah, thank you so much. You're absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. I just think you're the bee's knees. Thank you. And now for our fifth and final guest speaker, but certainly not least for the morning, I'm delighted to welcome and introduce the wonderful Meera Somji, co-founder of Clusivity, to talk to us about their specialist work in supporting businesses to measure, to pinpoint and progress in creating a diverse and inclusive workplace culture. Meera, it is so wonderful to have you with us, and the virtual floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone. I'm smiling so much because Emma Palmer's really making me feel loved in the chat. These includability mornings are just the most loving, supportive spaces. I completely agree with you, Sarah. Oh, I can't remember who said it now, but whoever said, if you ever need an ego boost, I think it was you, Hannah. No, I can't remember. But all of the speakers have been so great. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I'm gonna share my screen. I've got some sort of materials to share with you about our work. The topic of data can be a little bit dry for somebody that's not me. So I'm gonna sort of spend, a few minutes talking to you all about DEI data, building diverse and inclusive workplaces through data. Hopefully to keep your attention, I am going to run a little quiz at the end. So hopefully that will bring a little bit of fun and games to the very last session of today. Now, to introduce myself, I'm Meera Somji. As Dave said, I'm the co-founder of Clusivity. We are a DEI data tech startup. This is not my first includability presentation. But the last time I did it, it was just me and my co-founder. And this time I'm incredibly excited to say that I have two team members on the call with me who've joined Clusivity, Hector and Stephanie. So very, very fun for me to kind of map how much includability has been part of this journey. We launched 2.5 years ago and we're now a team of 4. And we're an impact-driven team helping businesses take a data-driven approach. And we're currently working with a range of organizations, big, small, charities, schools, profit, non-profit. And, you know, I think quite a few of you in this room had sort of know me and have met me before, but please do connect with me if you haven't. Now we're all broadly in the kind of inclusion well-being space, but I love to start with this quote from Lily Zhang, one of my favorite authors. And their definition of DEI says that DEI is about making safer and more respectful workplaces, strengthening everyone's well-being, and ending discrimination. And I'm thinking about how this kind of ties together quite a few of the presentations we've had, because we've got kind of Red January talking about well-being. We talked to like Emma's presentation about how important intersectionality is to analysing discrimination. And then a lot of what I'm going to talk about relates to Dipti's presentation about the lack of role models and diverse leaders, and how important that is. So I really like to start here. And what we see our role at Clusivity is taking organizations from the old DEI, because it has been around for a long time. And I've made a little bit of a meme that I think illustrates what I think are some of the key challenges with the old DEI. So using the Beecham meme, I think this kind of captures the way that a lot of organizations claim to care about building inclusive workplaces. But when you, thanks, it's difficult to make jokes when in a virtual room like this. So I appreciate you putting on your sound. But you know, when you scratch below the surface, they often don't have too much to show for what they're actually doing. So we see our role as taking organizations from the old DEI into the new DEI. And you can see we've got our own acronym, which is Diagnose, Equip, Impact. With our tools and our services, we help organizations really understand and, as Dave said, pinpoint the challenges that their employees face. We then make sure they're using the right training and the right tools to address those challenges, so that ultimately you can measure where you've made progress. And I've got one case study just to bring this to life. So we worked with a US-based media company, a few hundred employees, and they ran our Inclusimetric survey. Got a really good completion rate and actually a very high score overall on our equity index scale. But we pinpointed that there was an issue where especially LGBTQ plus employees and employees with a disability were facing microaggressions in the workplace. It's the kind of feedback you only get if you run these anonymously and you ask the right questions and you create a space where people feel safe enough to actually share what experiences they have. And we also identified an ethnicity pay gap in one office of this organization. So sort of clear areas that needed, that we diagnosed in our DEI framework. So the next step is equipping them with what they need to improve. And, you know, I thought people in this room might be a bit interested in how we use technologies like AI to really support our work. We kind of we're cautious about AI. We're kind of hypersensitive to the risks and the bias that's built in. But we see ourselves as, well, if someone's going to use AI, we should be trying to use it for the right reasons and doing it with that kind of caution. So we use an AI tool to analyze the sentiments within employees' answers so that we really understood what kind of microaggressions people were facing, what kind of bias they were facing, so that the training we could introduce was really targeted. I think, again, one of the other speakers said it, there's never a one size fits all. I think that was you, Hannah, with movement breaks. It's never one size fits all. And we're very, very keen to make sure companies like do what they need to really build places where their employees can thrive. And we also introduced a targeted mentoring scheme for ethnic minority professionals to address that pay gap, which is part of what Dipti was describing when she said, you know, there are very few racially diverse leaders. Well, that's what you know, pay gap metrics really highlight. So just to explain that AI tool, you've all done surveys before. You've all done either engagement surveys or inclusion surveys or well-being surveys. And I'm sure you've been asked to write open text answers. You might also be a people manager who's had to analyze them on the other side. And what our AI can do is sort of, first of all, categorize them so that you know you can read all the positive ones first and then move to the negative ones rather than having thousands of responses to read through. But we can also kind of summarize what are the forms of bias that people are facing in a kind of more data-driven, structured way. So what was the last step in our DEI framework? Well, we measured. When we did the Inclusimetrics survey in year 2, we found significantly fewer. I'm so sorry. I'm obviously working from home and there's obviously a really loud leaf blower. Please forgive me. But in year 2, when we ran the survey, we found significantly fewer reports of employees facing microaggressions in the workplace. And this last bit here is key. It's not enough to know that, for example, LGBTQ employees were not facing microaggressions and employees with a disability. We needed to know that there weren't people falling through the cracks and experiencing both. And experiencing them when they were, you know, belong to both groups. Okay, I hope that noise is over now. So my last sort of bit before I quiz you on some of this is we often get asked 3 questions related to the role of data in DEI. And one is, well, can data actually deliver change? And clearly we think yes. Clearly we think that with this kind of framework, you can pinpoint areas for improvement, you can ensure you introduce the right tools and training for you, and you can measure your progress. But we also get asked, does regulation actually help? So the Parker Review came in a few years ago, and it really addresses sort of, again, the challenge Dipti described of the lack of ethnic minorities in leadership, and it made companies, big companies, report on that level of representation. And since 2016, there's been a huge increase in the number of FTSE 100 companies with at least one ethnic minority director. Now, you can challenge this, and it's really valid to challenge what the roles of this director was. Was it a tick box exercise? Are they really influencing their company? But all of that, it's hard to deny that this kind of regulation has sparked change that then prompts those kinds of really important questions. And lastly, do we all need to worry about regulation? Is it increasing? And again, this will vary because some of you are from very small organizations and some of you are from bigger ones. But we know that especially under the new Labour government, there is going to be a lot more DEI data reporting, and you know, we're big advocates and we welcome the kind of ethnicity and disability pay gap reporting that is coming in. So it will be something that you, from sort of across sectors, across sizes, are going to need to be thinking about. And so I thought, before I switch you to quiz mode, leave you with just a question to ask yourself. How confident do you feel about collecting DEI data? And do you have any obstacles or challenges that you want to discuss within your team? And then maybe discuss with me later, now that you've met me. But let's do it. Let's have 3 minutes of quiz time. I'm going to get you to get your phones out and log into AHA Slides. So, of course, this will take a second. Hector and Stephanie know that I love running quizzes at the ends of things. Okay, here we go. And now I'm not sure whether the jazzy music will play. So if it doesn't, just imagine that there is jazzy music playing.
Or we could always do our own.
Oh, or we could always do our own.
Dipti's a DJ. We're quitting.
Yeah.
I am going to post.
Get the decks going.
So hopefully if you all go either on your laptops or on your phones to ahaslides.com and type in that code, you should be able to join. And slowly, oh, thanks, Chris. You're the best. Okay, good. We're starting to see a few people join.
Mine's saying there's a participation limit now.
Well, that should only be up to 50.
Yeah.
Is the music playing now?
Yes.
Yeah, Meera, we got it.
There should only be a participation limit of 50 people. All right, I think we may kick off and start this. Hopefully you guys can still join once it's started. Otherwise, you know, because you can always answer the questions on your own. Okay, question 1 of 5, and you've got to be quick. What is the purpose of DEI? And you can tick more than one. Okay. Okay, have a look whether you got those right. Very good that none of you fell into my trap of making funny memes and International Women's Day cupcakes. But who was first? Oh my gosh, it's very close. Very, very close leaderboard, but Chantel is the one to beat. Question 2. What is Clusivity's new DEI framework? Oh, one person fell into my trap, yay! But the rest of you got it right. Diagnose, equip, impact. But what does that mean for the leaderboard? A bit of movement, but Chantel's still the one to beat. 3 more questions. This one's tough. How many FTSE 100 companies had one ethnic minority leader in 2016? Very good. Okay, it was tough. I knew it would get tougher at this point, but 8 of you got it right. And this speaks to your point, Dipti, that there are so few companies a few years ago with only one ethnic minority on boards. What does that mean for the leaderboard? Laura's up ahead. 2 more questions to go. How has it changed since 2016? Okay. Oh, only 3 of you got it right. Only 3 of you got it right. That's going to change things. Oh, Laura. Okay, let's see. We've got 1 more to beat Laura. And maybe you can take more than 1. Okay. Okay, lots of you got it right. Lots of you got it right. But not enough to beat Laura. Well done. You are my Clusivity champ. Thank you all for listening. Well done, Laura, for winning. Thank you all for playing. You're all winners in my mind. Dave, back over to you.
Meera, that was literally the best thing ever. Oh my word, that intro music. Danny put in a wonderful comment just to say that needs to be the intro music for every ESG from this point moving forward. I thought, what's happening? Oh, it's a shoulder pop. Hello, calm down. It was lovely. Meera, you're amazing. Thank you. That was just incredible. I mean, I know that we all love listening to you and learning from you so much. Inclusivity do phenomenal work, and we cannot recommend the value that they bring and the support that they offer to businesses any more highly. Meera, you're an absolute legend. Thank you again so much. And please forgive me. I know that we sort of crept just a few minutes over. I promise I won't keep you much longer. But finally, just a couple of hot dates for your diary. This is actually our last ESG for the summer, not because we don't love you, but because we know that traditionally that the last week in August is full on with holidays and little ones go back to school the following week. So we're still absolutely here to support you in any way that we can, but we shall return ESG-wise on Wednesday, the 25th of September, where we'll be hosting 3 more fantastic guest speakers. Please do join us. We'd love to see you there, and that registration link will be dropping into the chat feed for you in just a moment. And if I could kindly ask you all to circle the 24th of August in your diaries to blow a big includability kiss to our very own Chris Taylor. He'll be marrying his beautiful fiancée, Emma, that day. Chris, we love you so much, mate. We'll be thinking of you and Emma and little Elliot, of course, like crazy. I know it's going to be an absolutely magical day. So sending massive hugs. And I hope that time goes beautifully slowly for all 3 of you, but selfishly very quickly for us, because we'll all miss you very much. Mate, huge congratulations and loads of love. And on that note, that brings us to the end of our ESG this morning. Wow, what a special one it's been, and really hope you've enjoyed it. A huge thank you to our utterly brilliant, inspirational guest speakers, to Dipti, to Emma, to Hannah, to Sarah and Meera. What unbelievable legends you all are. Thank you for all of your insights and for sharing your wisdom today. And from James, Chris, Paul, Patrick, Danny, Chloe, Maddie, Em, myself, and the whole team at Includability Disrupt Agency, a huge thank you to every single one of you for joining us this morning. In the meantime, as ever, let's keep working in partnership to develop that mentally healthy and inclusive workplace culture. We can't wait to see you all back again in September. Loads of love to you all, and have an incredible rest of your week. Take good care, everyone.